Hello, hello. We're going to get started in just a second, but I wanted to first introduce myself. I am Mr. Sam. I'm here at the kids' table in Wicker Park. I'm really excited to make this recipe because I have not eaten yet this morning in anticipation of it. There's our raspberry lemon muffins. They're super yummy. There are a decent amount of ingredients, so I'm going to give you a little bit more time to gather them together before we get started. But I'll also go over our recipe as we go. But you'll need some flour, sugar, eggs, a lemon, raspberries, butter, which your butter, it's half a stick. You want to make sure that that is out and getting to room temperature. We'll use that later on. We also need baking powder and baking soda, salt, rolled oats, vanilla, and this stuff, which I want to tell you about more later. This is our buttermilk. And we did not buy this at the store. I wanted to show you how we made this here earlier this morning. And then as far as your equipment, we've got a couple people joining us already. Awesome. We are going to use a large mixing bowl and a whisk, a second smaller mixing bowl, a muffin tin. We're going to make 12 of these bad boys. They're going to be so yummy. And a spoon to portion them out with. Hello, Sheila. Welcome. And then finally, some pan spray. So as you're gathering your ingredients together, I'm going to wash my hands before we get started. You should as well. And Sheila, we are making raspberry lemon muffins. They're going to be super yummy, and they're going to have a little streusel topping on top of them as well. They're the best little breakfast snack. They're so good. It's why I've been pushing off my breakfast until now. So I'm going to wash my hands up a little bit, and I'll be right back, and we are going to get started on our muffins. Alrighty, and hello, Becky. Nice to see you. And as you come on, if you want to give me a thumbs up or a heart emoji or a laughing emoji, whatever you want, that's how I know that you're on there. And if you have any of your little chefs helping you out today, you want to drop their name so I can say hello to them as well. I love everyone joining in with us. We actually have a few people on here. I'm really excited about that. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First things first is we need to preheat our oven to 400 degrees. That way when our muffin batter is ready to get in there, it's all ready for it, and our muffins can be nice and delicious by the end of this video, which hopefully, fingers crossed, will be less than an hour because I'm starving. So first things first, you want to grab 2 eggs, and we're going to crack our 2 eggs into our mixing bowl with our whisk. And I said this last week, and if you don't remember, you always want to make sure that with your eggs, hello Jocelyn and Lila, nice to see you again. I think you have done class with me before. I'm really excited that you're here. So with our eggs, we want to make sure that we are cracking them on the flat part of our table, because if we do it on the side of our bowl, some shell can get in there. And even though I just washed my hands, I've got eggs all over my hands again. So I'm quickly going to wash my hands again. I'll be right back. Perfect. Okay, so once your eggs are in the bowl, you want to whisk these up real well. You don't want to see any yolk, you don't want to see any egg white. You want to see a nice, frothy, whipped up yellow egg. All right. Now, in my other bowl right here, I'm going to sift together or mix together all of my dry ingredients. So when we make cake, you'll see us add all these ingredients in one at a time, or maybe add in our sugar to our egg. That's called the creaming method, or sometimes the sponge method of baking. Today, we're doing the muffin method, which with that is you combine all of your dry ingredients, and then we're going to do all of our wet ingredients separately and then mix them together at one time. So that's why I have this bowl right here for that. So I've got my sugar, which our sugar, we have a half cup plus a teaspoon. I've already got it, sorry, half cup plus a tablespoon. I've got it right here in this bowl. I'm gonna go ahead and add that in there. And then, two very important ingredients. This is baking powder over here. This is baking soda over here. Now, a lot of people ask me, what's the difference between these two things? And the answer is, baking soda is actually in baking powder, but baking powder has another ingredient in it. Sometimes it has cream of tartar in it or some type of softening agent. So when it rises and becomes a nice big muffin, it also is nice and soft, because if you just use baking soda, what happens is that it gets really big, but that structure is kind of hard and tough, and we don't want to have that. So that's why we're going to put some baking powder in there that will soften all of those muffins and cupcakes for us. So we're going to put our baking powder in there, which the baking powder is 2 teaspoons. I'm always going to make sure that I double check my recipe. You should as well. And then we're going to do 1/8 of a teaspoon of baking soda. The next ingredient we're going to put in here is a superpower ingredient. And just a little bit of it, we're going to use it both for our streusel and for our muffins themselves. And what that is salt. You might think it's crazy to have salt in a sweet recipe like muffins, but what it will do is it will make the raspberry sweeter. It will make the flour actually taste a little bit sweet itself, and it will make the entire muffins come together extremely, extremely well. So we're going to do 1 little pinch of salt in there. And I'm going to go back through my recipe list. It looks good. I've got all my dry ingredients in here, except for my flour. But I'm going to first mix this together. I've got my spoon, mix this together so it's all together. And if you want to, I've got a question for you. So you want to go ahead and put this in the comments. Why do you think we are sifting these together? Why do you think it's important to have all of our dry ingredients mixed together before we even put it into the wet ingredients? It's a very, very important thing, but it definitely has something to do with the taste. So if you can imagine what might happen if we didn't do this, and you want to put it in the comments, I'll give you a huge virtual high five if you can figure it out. So, mixing these together, and then I'm going to put this into my flour. And I'm going to very gently, because if you try and do this too much, you're going to end up having a huge explosion of flour and sugar all over your table. So we're going to mix these together so we don't see any clumps of baking soda, no clumps of flour, we don't have any sugar pockets. It's all going to be one mixed thing. And then I want to grab one more ingredient from right over here. So, now that we have all of this mixed together, we are going to add in the rest of our wet ingredients into our eggs. So, the first wet ingredient that's going to go in here is our buttermilk. Now, this is the ingredient that I was going to tell you. I'm going to explain how we made this, because you should never ever buy buttermilk from a store when you can make it at home for so much cheaper. So what you want to do is you want to take 1 cup of milk and you want to add in 4 teaspoons or a tablespoon plus a teaspoon of lemon juice or white vinegar. Or you could also use white wine vinegar. That's my personal favorite. But I use lemon juice in here because we're making raspberry lemon muffins. So in here is 4 teaspoons of lemon juice. Now you mix this together and it'll look like it's starting to split a little bit, but you want to mix it together and you want to let it sit for a couple hours. So you want to do this well before you do your recipe. But you want to keep mixing this together and then refrigerate it, and it will actually make homemade buttermilk just for you. And it was for the price of what you pay just for milk and a lemon rather than the much higher price of buttermilk. So I'm going to put all this into our eggs and mix this together. All right, so then our next wet ingredient that will go in here is our oil. And with our oil, we are going to need a 1/2 cup. So I have my oil. I did not grab my measuring cup, so I'm going to grab that right now. All right, so got my measuring cup. Perfect. Put that in there. And what's going to happen with our muffin batter and our oil is that they're going to separate. So you got to make sure that you mix this up with your whisk super well, so all that oil gets mixed in with your wet ingredients, so you don't see any oil around the edges. You just see one liquid. So this might take a second, but the more you whisk all of your ingredients right now, the fluffier your muffins will be, which we definitely want fluffy muffins. We don't want hockey puck muffins. So this is one of the big benefits. Let me see if I can angle you down a little bit. So this is one of the big benefits of doing everything in this way with having your liquid ingredients separate, is that I have a little bit of a frothier egg mixture right now by just having my liquid ingredients in here. Because the oil and the water and then the acid that's inside of that buttermilk, they are going to make all of these bubbles that stay together and froth up your batter. Because if we were to add in our dry ingredients right now, it wouldn't do this and we wouldn't have nearly as light of muffins as before. So whisk this up so it's real nice and frothy. And next up is some vanilla, which, I mean, vanilla is great in everything. At least I think so. And we're gonna whisk this up. Last ingredient that goes into this will be some lemon, but not what's inside the lemon, because that's actually in our buttermilk. We're going to take what's on the outside of our lemon, and that starts with a Z, ends with an S. It's called zest. And we're going to take this microplane, which is like a long grater, but if you have just a standard box grater or even one of our little tiny kids graters, you can just grate the side of your lemon. And a little pro trick, a lot of people, when they zest lemons, especially with the microplane, I see them do this a lot, where they'll grate it like this over here, but it's much easier to actually grate it like you're playing a violin like this, because it will all trap inside of the microplane like this, and you can better measure it and control how much zest you're putting in there. You can also see where on the lemon you've already zested and make sure you get all of it off. Perfect. So we've got our lemon zest in our mix. And you know what? I'm gonna put a little bit more in there. I don't like lemon zest. That's yummy. Okay. So So we got those in there. We've got all of our liquid ingredients now. We have all of our dry ingredients. So this is when we are going to combine both of them. It's very important with this that you want to make sure that everything is nice and mixed together, but not over mixed, because muffins need to be nice and light. So what I do is I add in half of my dry ingredients and just move it around a little bit, very lightly. And then add in the rest, so I'm not making a huge mess when I do whisk this up. And you're not trying to whisk this super crazy. You just want to try and stir it together with your whisk. And we're getting rid of all these clumps. Make sure you pick up at the bottom, because you'll be surprised when you start putting all of your muffins together in the muffin tin, and then there's this big pool of flour at the bottom. So make sure that you're picking up everything from the bottom. And once it's starting to come together, and you don't have any flour that you can see, and you don't have any big clumps, you want to stop. You don't even want to go anymore. You don't want to mix this up too much. And what you'll do is you'll actually switch over to a spoon or a spatula. I'm going to use a spoon because it will do two things for me. It'll help me out with the next step, but also it'll help me portion them when I put them into the muffin tins as well. So what we're going to do is the star of the show today, our raspberries. We're going to put them in now. So if we try to use our whisk for this, not only will we break up all of our raspberries into little tiny pieces, we'll also overmix our flour. So we want to just pull from the bottom and flip over. So pull from the bottom, flip over, just like this. And that's folding them in. It's always been a weird word that I see in recipes. Like, am I supposed to like origami these raspberries in? And I was like, no, you just have to stir it by picking up from the bottom. All right, so now that we've got all of those nice and mixed in, we're going to stop with our batter, and we are going to get our muffin tins out. A lot of people have asked me recently, how much do you need to spray your muffin tin? A lot of people, I think, over spray their muffin tin. You still want to make sure that it's nice and evenly coated, but you don't want to have so much in there that it's pooling up at the bottom, because not only is it going to make your muffins or your cakes or whatever taste a little oily, it will also, that oil will get very hot in those pools, and it will actually crisp up or potentially even burn the bottom of whatever you're cooking. So I go about this far away, and I just gently go over in one direction and come back the other way like that, and I'm done. There's not big pools of it. If there's a little place that you miss, you can spritz it one more time, but you don't want to go crazy with your spray. So now we're going to fill these up, and just like if you remember us making the brownies earlier, or last week, you don't want to fill these up all the way, because with your baking powder and your baking soda, these will expand quite a bit. What we're trying to do with this is only fill it about halfway to 2/3 of the way, so it gives our muffins plenty of time to grow. It's like if you grew up like me, your mom always bought you shoes that were a size too big, so you grew into them. It's the same way with our muffin batter and our muffin tins. I think my mom's watching right now. She's probably laughing at that. So, this should be enough to fill up 12 muffin tins and maybe even just a hair more. So if you've got extra batter and you don't want to make more muffins right now, you can definitely put this in the fridge. I don't think it's going to freeze that well, so you don't want to throw it in the freezer, but definitely you can put it in the fridge for a couple days. All right. And if you've baked with me before, you know our next trick, we're going to take our muffin tins and we're just going to shake them around a little bit, make them do a little dance. And then this way we'll see if they are all evenly distributed into our muffin tins. If you also see that one doesn't have enough raspberries in it versus another, you can make sure that you put a raspberry in that one. Or maybe one's just raspberries, you make sure you take one out and put in more batter. Because if you just try and bake just raspberries, it's not going to turn into a cupcake. All right, so as you might have already seen later on in the recipe, we do have a streusel topping. We are not going to put that on just yet. We're actually going to put these into the oven, and we're only going to bake them for half the time that it takes for the entire muffin recipe. Because if we were to put our streusel topping in right now, there's a possibility that the streusel topping will actually sink into our muffins. And also, if they do get on there and it's maybe a little too dry, they could burn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put our muffins into the oven, and we are going to put them in for 10 minutes. Because total cooking time is 15 to 17. So we're going to do 10 minutes, and then that's when we're going to put our streusel topping on the top. So I will be right back. I'm going to put these into our 400-degree oven, and we are going to make our streusel next. All right, so I've got my timer on there for 10 minutes. When we pull them out, if I forget to tell you when I do, when we put the streusel on, we want to rotate our pan so our muffins are evenly cooked from front to back and side to side. None of them are cooked too much, none of them are cooked too little. So, we are going to put these bowls aside. You're going to grab your butter. You're going to grab another half cup of flour, a quarter cup of sugar, a quarter cup of oats, and we're going to bring our vanilla back as well. No, we're not. Not in this one, sorry. Put in this bag. We've got our oats, flour, sugar, and butter. What you're going to do is you're going to take your flour, your sugar, your oats, put them into a bowl. And what you might have noticed is I'm not holding a utensil. I just have my hands because we need to use our hands to make our streusel. So we're going to mix this together with one hand. Don't make a mess all over your countertop. We're going to mix this together with our hands so all of our dry ingredients are evenly mixed together. And then we're going to take our butter that should be already at room temperature, so it's going to be nice and easy to smash together in our hands. And the reason why we're using our hands for this is that our hands are going to continue to warm our butter to make it easier to mix this together. If you try to do this with a spoon, or definitely not a whisk, or a spatula, what's going to end up happening is that this is going to be very clumpy and there's going to be big butter spots and things like that. When we use our hands, it's going to make this much easier to mix together and easier to put onto our muffins themselves. So, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. We can always wash them. We're going to mix them together like this. I like to use just one hand for this so I can have the other one clean in case I do need to grab something else, and also so I can hold on to the bowl. But you're smashing all of those ingredients into your butter. So you're going to pick up some of those ingredients and just press them into that butter. And we want to keep doing this until you don't see any clumps of butter anymore. Because if we put a little clump of butter on top of the muffins, it will just melt and fall right off. Whereas if you have all of your flour and your oats and your sugar mixed together, when you do put the streusel on top, the butter will help cook that streusel on top instead of running off the side and stay on top of the muffin. Because butter doesn't taste good on the side of the pan when it falls off. It tastes good when it's on top of the muffin and getting all nice and caramelized. So keep mixing this together. And slowly but surely, this will turn into a nice big pancake of flour and oats and sugar. There we go. So as you can see with mine, we're starting to get this big flaky ball. And if yours is really, really crumbly, like it's just completely falling apart like this, that means that you need to add a little bit more butter. And if it's just staying in one big ball and it's a little too wet, that's when you want to add in a little bit more flour or a little bit more oats. You don't want to put more sugar in unless it's really, really wet, because what the sugar will actually do is it's not going to help thicken it up and dry it out as much as it's just going to make it sweeter, and actually it's going to make it not stick together as well. So this is what I have in my bowl now. It looks like almost like wet clumpy sand, but if I was to take both my hands now and press it together, see, I'm making a mess. We're definitely gonna have to clean the table before we bring our muffins out. So when I bring it together in my hands, it will stick together in a big clump, but it will also break apart pretty easily. And that's how you know that your streusel is perfect. I'm not trying to toot my own horn or pat myself on the back, but this streusel does look really, really good. I think Kids Table wrote a pretty solid recipe with this. Awesome. So this is what I've got here. This is ready to go. My muffins still have like 4 minutes before it hits that 10-minute mark, but I think it's even good right now that I can put the streusel on there. I don't really have to worry about it being too undercooked right now, because it's at least been in there for 7 minutes. But I want to grab those and we're going to put this on there. I will say I've got butter, sugar, and flour and oats all over my hands, and you probably do now as well if you're following along with me. So I'm going to wash my hands before I grab my muffins, and I'm probably going to clean up my table too, because the last thing you want is a super messy table before you bring muffins out here. So I'm going to clean up my table a little bit, wash my hands, grab my muffins, and I'll be right back in a flash. Alrighty, so if you take a look at my muffins, they've done most of the rising. You can see that they've puffed up a lot on the sides, but it's still very raw and the inside is very soft. But it's enough to where I know my streusel won't fall into the middle of it, and it won't burn if it cooks too long in the oven. So I'm going to take my hands here. I want to sprinkle a little bit on top. Now, you don't want to put too much streusel on top of your muffins here, because what can happen is it will weigh down your muffin and it won't rise up and spring up as much as it would if you just let them be. So, we only want to put a little bit on there. Don't go crazy. Still want to put enough on there where it's going to taste real good. And if you have leftover muffin batter like I do, I'm going to save some of my streusel as well, so I can put them on top of on top of those muffins as well. So this is what my muffins look like at this point. I grab these like this, so when I put them into the oven, I'm actually going to put them in like this, because then that way all the ones that were in the back of the oven to begin with will be at the front of the oven this time. So they will all evenly cook. So I'm going to put these back into the oven and I'll be right back. All right, I am back. So, a couple things to talk to you about as we have our muffins in the oven. There's a bunch of really cool stuff going on here at Kids Table. I'm super pumped about them. If you've looked at our website recently, you can see a new tab that the wonderful Miss Elena just put together, and it is about our virtual classes and virtual camps. So, keep your ears open and your eyes open to some really awesome camp activities and menus that we'll be publishing very soon, and we hope to see you in those camps. I know I'm going to be teaching some of the camps, and some of our really cool instructors like Mr. Ben, Miss Michaela, Miss Lauren, and Miss Pam are going to be helping out with those too. But we're going to have so many cool classes and cool camps coming up for you very soon with so many different recipes. Don't worry, we're probably still going to do some Facebook Live stuff, and we're definitely going to continue to do our Zoom classes. We've started this week with a lot of our Zoom class schedule. We've been making two really awesome recipes. I'm so glad to eat a bunch of them this week. But it's our asparagus pesto pizza, and then also our double chocolate brownies. So yum. So definitely go onto our website to check out more about those recipes and what times we're going to be cooking them. They're from the morning to the evening. I know I'm doing one at 3:30 Central Time today with our asparagus pesto pizza, but we were going to have classes even tomorrow morning, I think at like 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. So if you do have another time to cook with me again, they are available, and we'll be making some more lunch and dessert foods. This is definitely more of a breakfast food, so you can definitely stick around with us throughout the week for that. Camps, definitely keep your eye out for those. More announcements will be made soon. So I'm really excited for camp. If you know anything about Mr. Sam, he is obsessed with camp, loves it so much. And those are going to be anywhere for kids, I think 4 to like 15, 4 to 14, something like that. So anyone, pretty much anyone can join camp. So we still have, looks like 4 minutes for our muffins to be ready and come out of the oven. So I'm going to clean up my table. I've got lots and lots of dishes from all of our ingredients. And I did have someone send over a question, if you don't like raspberries, can you still make these muffins? Yes, you can. This muffin recipe is kind of our base muffin recipe, so you can use any kind of fruit that you'd like. If you're going to use more of like a citrus fruit, if you want to do that, that's going to be more with your juice or the zest. So you don't want to put like segments of orange or segments of lime into your muffins. But if you want to use any kind of berry, you can put those in there. Your strawberries, you'll have to chop them up first. Your blackberries, you'll have to chop them up first as well. But if you want to put apples in there, go right ahead. You can easily make some cinnamon apple muffins by just tossing your apples in the sugar that was in our dry ingredients. So you want to take some of that sugar from the dry ingredients, toss it with the apples, a little bit of cinnamon, and then you can make apple cinnamon muffins. But the world is your oyster when it comes to these muffins. So just take your standard recipe, Don't worry about the raspberries and the lemon zest, and add in whatever fruit you want to, as long as you're still doing the same portion, the same amount. So don't try and put 3 cups of your favorite apple into the batter. You can use whatever you'd like. So I want to tidy up a little bit right here so Miss Ellen doesn't yell at me for making a mess. And our muffin should be out of the oven by that time. So give me a couple minutes, I'll be right back. Also, if you have any questions, or if you want to take a picture of what your muffins are looking like, you can definitely throw them into the comments. I would love to take a look at them. Yo, these look so good. Miss Elena, even her eyes got wide open when she saw these. They're all nice and golden brown on top. When you stick a toothpick or a skewer into the middle of it and pull it out, they're still a little bit moist, but you don't see any of the raw muffin batter on there. Our streusel is nice and golden brown, but none of it's burnt, and also none of it's raw. So I think I'm gonna give myself a little bit of a pat on the back. If you guys want to give me a thumbs up to help me pat myself on my own back, that'd be great. But I'm gonna grab a plate. I'm gonna start eating these up. Right, so these are still going to be super hot. Remember, they just came out of a 400-degree oven. We definitely don't want to try and touch these with our bare hands right now, or your human hands. Hopefully someone got that joke. So we are going to separate them if they're not quite pulling off. There we go, perfection. One thing that my grandfather showed me when I was a kid was how he eats his muffins, where he actually slices them in half from top to bottom, and then he puts them in the oven, and he toasts them just a little bit in the middle, and then puts some butter on top of that and a little bit of salt. I might have to do that later when these things cool down. If I was to try and do that right now, they would fall apart. But let me pop one of these puppies out of here. Oh man. Oh. Look at how awesome that muffin looks. Oh geez, almost dropped it. Hopefully your muffins look just as good as these when they come out of the oven. I also hope they smell as good. Making muffins is like having your own candle as well. It just makes your entire kitchen smell fantastic. So I'm going to devour these. Hopefully you are going to devour your muffins as well. But thank you so much for cooking with me and the kids table today. We are going to have some awesome recipes next week as well on Facebook Live, so keep checking our Facebook to see those recipes, as well as check out our website to see what our Zoom classes and our camps will be. And I hope to see you soon in those or next week on Facebook Live. So have a good rest of your day, have a good weekend, and I'll see you next week.